It's Combat Critic here. In this video, I want to give my pick for this upcoming fight between Jim Miller and Jared Gordon. So let's get started. If we look at the records of these two guys, starting with Jim Miller, he has 53 fights, so he is a legend of the MMA game. He's won 35 of them and lost 17. If we look at his 35 wins, 6 have come via knockout, 19 have come via submission, and 10 have come via decision. If we look at the 17 losses, he's lost twice via knockout and 3 times via sub and 12 via decision. So it's really hard to finish Jim Miller. Most of his losses are decision losses. And if we talk about his wins, he doesn't really have a lot of knockout power, but he has the BJJ skills to submit you. And he also has one no contest on his record. Now let's talk about Jared Gordon. So he has 26 fights. So less than half the number of fights that Jim Miller has, and he's won 19, lost 6. It should have been 5. And if we talk about his 19 wins, 6 wins via knockout, 2 wins via sub, and 11 wins via decision. If we talk about the losses, he's been knocked out 4 times. He's been submitted just once and lost via decision just once. And he also has a no contest, which happened in his last fight. So for Jared Gordon, his weakness is his chin. He's been knocked out 4 times, but Jay Miller is not very good at knocking out guys, so this gives me a little confidence in Jared Gordon. Now let's talk about the fighter statistics. That includes the physical stats as well as the career stats. Starting with the physical stats, height is 5 feet 8 for Jim Miller and it is 5 feet 9 for Jared Gordon. So Jared has a slight 1 inch height advantage. Weight, so this fight will be contested at lightweight. If we talk about the reach, it is 71 inches for Jim Miller and 68 inches for Jared Gordon. So Jim Miller, even though he is the smaller fighter, he will have a 3-inch reach advantage. If we talk about the stance, Jim is a southpaw whereas Jared is an orthodox stance fighter. And if we talk about the age, so Jim is old. He is an old fighter. He has been in the UFC for a long time. And Jared is the younger fighter. He should have the age advantage with him. Now let's talk about the career statistics, starting with the striking numbers. First up, we have the strikes landed per minute. This signifies the number of significant strikes that you land on your opponent per minute on average. This is 2.85 for Jim Miller and it is 5.32 for Jared Gordon. So Jared has double the number of Jim Miller. He is landing a lot more significant strikes on his opponents. He will have an advantage here. Now striking accuracy is 41% for Jim Miller and it is 57% for Jared Gordon. So again the advantage goes to Jared. Now if we talk about the strikes absorbed per minute, this signifies the number of significant strikes that you absorb from your opponent per minute on average. This is 3.08 for Jim Miller and it is 3.28 for Jared. So in this case the lower number is better because you are getting hit less than your opponent. So here the advantage actually goes to Jim. If we talk about the striking defense, it is 58% for Jim and it is also 58% for Jared. So both these guys are even. Now let's talk about the wrestling, grappling and BJJ statistics. The takedown average is 1.56 for Jim Miller, whereas it is 2.01 for Jared Gordon. So Jared, he is using a lot more takedowns in his game. He will have an advantage. Now let's talk about the takedown accuracies. 43% for Jim and 40% for Jared. So here both guys are pretty even, but a slight advantage goes to Jim. If we talk about the takedown defense, it is 48% for Jim Miller and 62% for Jared Gordon. So clear advantage goes to Jared in the takedown defense department. Submission average is 1.8 for Jim Miller and I think this is his best attribute in this fight. And it is 0 for Jared Gordon. Jared has never attempted a submission in the UFC so far. So the clear BJJ advantage goes to Jim Miller. Now let's talk about the significant strikes by position of these two guys. If we talk about the standing, it is 69%. So 69% of all the strikes that Jim throws are from the standing position. And if we compare that to Jarrett, he has 64% strikes in the standing position. In the clinch, it is 16% for Jim and it is 13% for Jarrett. On the ground, it is 15% for Jim and 23% for Jarrett. So Jarrett has the better, relatively better ground and pound. He uses that a lot more compared to Jim. If we talk about the significant strikes by target, 58% of all the strikes that Jim throws are to the head compared to 71% for Jarrett. So Jarrett is mostly head hunting. And if we talk about the body, it is 21% for Jim and 18% for Jarrett. And to the leg, again 21% for Jim and just 11% for Jarrett. So Jarrett really does not mix a lot of his striking. He is usually head hunting, whereas Jim goes to the body and the leg with the same frequency and he mixes his strikes. Now let's look at some of the previous performances of these two guys. Starting with Jim Miller, in his last fight, he lost to Alexander Hernandez by unanimous decision. And this fight happened in February of this year. So he is taking around 3 months and coming back to fight once again. Before that, he beat Donald Cowboy Cerrone via submission guillotine choke. And this fight happened in July of last year. This was, I believe, the last fight of Cowboy Cerrone's MMA career. He retired after that. And before that, he beat Nicolas Mota via TKO in the second round and Eric Gonzalez also via knockout in the second round. However, these two guys don't really have a Wikipedia page, so you can know how talented, how famous, how popular these guys are. And before that, he lost to Joe Solecki via unanimous decision in a 3-round fight. He lost to Wink via unanimous decision, also in a 3-round fight. Beat Roosevelt Roberts via armbar in the first round and lost to Scott Holtzman via unanimous decision. Beat Clay Guida by a submission guillotine choke in the first round. So, a decent record for Jim Miller, considering this is the end of his career. Now, let's talk about Jarrett. So, in his last fight, which happened recently, he got KO'd by an accidental clash of heads against Bobby Green in the first round. And this happened in April of this year. So, this is my biggest concern. He is turning around and fighting very soon after having, his head KO'd, and this can affect him in this fight. Before that, he lost to Paddy Pimblett, but this was a robbery. I think we all agree that this is a robbery. He should have won this fight. This happened in December of last year. So Jarrett is pretty active in recent times. And before that, he beat Leonardo Santos via unanimous decision in August of last year. He lost to Grant Dawson via submission rear naked choke in the third round. This fight also happened last year. And before that, he beat Joe Solecki via split decision. And if you look at Joe, you'll find it in Jim Miller's record right here. So he beat Joe actually beat Jim Miller, but he lost to Jared Gordon. I think a lot of people are looking at this fight and saying this is the reason why they are doing MMA math and saying this might be the reason why Jared wins the fight. And if we talk about the fight before that, he beat Danny Chavez by unanimous decision. Chris Fishgold, again unanimous decision. He lost to Charles Oliveira by knockout in the first round, but we all know how good Charles Oliveira is. And before that, he beat Dan Moret by unanimous decision in a 3-round fight. So most of the wins of Jared Gordon are unanimous decision wins. He is really a decision machine in the sense that if he wins, it will be likely a decision. Whereas for Jim Miller, he can submit you, he can knock you out. And in decisions, actually, his record is more or less 50-50. I think he has 10 wins by decision and 12 losses by decision. For Jared, I think his records in decisions is really good. He's lost just once, and that was also this robbery right here. So if I have to pick a winner of this fight, I think I'll go with Jared Gordon. I think he is the younger fighter. He lands a lot more strikes, and his takedowns are better than those of Jim Miller. However, he needs to be careful of that submission, because if he takes down Jim Miller, Jim will look to lock him up in a guillotine, or get him in a rear naked choke. But other than that, I think he should win this fight. Jim Miller might really retire after this fight. For these reasons, I am picking Jared to win this fight. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I'll see you guys in the next video.